so often considered to be good, godlike beings, and the Daedra are more often considered to be similar to demons, even though there are quite a few Daedra that are neutral and or good. So yeah, the Aedra are, there are many. There's about eight Daedra, and, or eight Aedra, oh my gosh, and one that is called Talos. He was once a man who apparently ascended to godhood. Ascended to godhood upon his death. We're going to be discussing the 8 divines and Talos, along with a group called the Magnagi, and one honorable mention of Lorcan. He's not considered to be one of the 9 or 8 divines, but he is mentioned in every culture's pantheon on Tamriel and outside of Tamriel, so I figured it would be worth it to mention him, because he has a lot to do with the creation story of the world in the Elder Scrolls. So yeah, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. At the time of filming this, we're like 5 subscribers away from 600, which is nuts. Thank you so much for all the support. I never ever thought that my channel would get this much attention and support, so thank you all so much, like from the bottom of my heart. This video might come out after we've already hit 600 subscribers, so if we already have, thank you all so much for 600 subscribers. It truly does mean so much to me, and I honestly can't believe it, so thank you all so much. I hope that you enjoy this video. Let me know in the comments who your favorite Aedra is, or who your least favorite Aedra is, or if you don't like any of them, or if you like all of them, just comment down below. Okay, let's get started. So I have my little notebook here where I have all of my ASMR notes. Once again, all of them are in alphabetical order. So the first Aedra we're going to discuss is called Akatosh. You're definitely familiar with him if you've played Skyrim. He is also called the Dragon God of Time, because he often takes form, his physical form is often that of a large red dragon, and he controls, or doesn't control, but his domain consists of time. He is also the chief deity of the 9 divines, so like a king of the gods. He watches over endurance, or represents endurance, invincibility, and everlasting legitimacy. He once had an avatar, so he came into a human body in the 3rd era, who went by the name Hero of Kavach. I believe that is part of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, but I haven't played that game yet, so if it is, let me know in the comments. So, Akatosh took human form as the Hero of Kavach in the 3rd era, and he fought Mehrunes Dagon and defeated him in the Imperial City. Mehrunes Dagon is a Daedric prince of rebellion and destruction and bloodshed, basically. So he defeated him in the Imperial City in the 3rd era. All of the 9 divines have different names in different cultures, similar to how the Greeks and Romans had different names for the same god. So, do the elves, the snow elves, the wood elves, and most other elves, Akatosh is called Auriel, and in the Khajiit pantheon, he is called Alkosh. So yeah, he is one of the divines that persists throughout every culture's pantheon within Tamriel, along with 2 other gods who we're going to discuss later on. The second god that we're going to talk about, or second Aedra, is named Arche in the Imperial pantheon. He is also referred to as the returns, and then fall happens, and life must die, and then it comes back again. So, kind of similar to the cycle of life and death. He is known as Orkay, Orkay, in the Nordic pantheon. I might get this pronunciation wrong. He's known as Tuatha in the Yokuden pantheon. The Yokudens are a race that once lived on the continent of Yokuda, but the continent was destroyed, and the remaining people moved to Hammerfell and are now known as Red Guards. So, to the Red Guards of Hammerfell, Orkay is known as Tuatha. I think I'm saying that right. And he is known as Xerxes to the Wood Elves and the other elves of Tamriel. The third Aedra we have is Dibella. She is the goddess of beauty, love, art, and music. She's also known as the Passion Dancer and Our Blessed Lady. Occasionally, she has been called the Queen of Heaven. She was also worshipped by the ancient Gothringi men of Blackmarsh. She was called Deeb by the Gothringi. The Gothringi are now extinct, but they used to live in Blackmarsh, which is the native region of the Argonian lizard people. But they are extinct now. She is the patron deity of Digonas, which is a region in Hammerfell. She had a cult following called the Order of the Lily that was also formed in Hammerfell. And they were a group of knights that protected the temples of Dibella against Sanguine. Sanguine is a Daedric prince of hedonism and debauchery. So Dibella comes in as this patron deity of beauty and love and kindness and compassion, and Sanguine is in a similar sphere, but more so. He gives into hedonism and even things that people delight in that are horrible, like, some people like murder. So Dibella would be, like flowers and happiness and sex and love, and Sanguine is more like get drunk and do whatever you want. So they're associated with good fortune in daily life, and she is linked to rain. So farmers and such will pray to her when they need rain for their crops, similar to a fertility goddess. She's also heavily linked to the god Zenithar, who we'll discuss later. He's kind of like a god of commerce and hard work, because his craftsmen use her natural world to create the things like high society. So Kinnereth is like the goddess of the natural world, like stone, rock, air, the sky, and Zenithar is kind of like the god of civilization and society. So you couldn't have a blacksmith who forges things without the natural metal, so that they're linked in that sense. So you can't really worship Zenithar without at least acknowledging Kinnereth. To the Nords, she is known as Kine, and the Throat of the World is said to be her sacred mountain. The Throat of the World is the tallest mountain in all of Tamriel. So some would say it would touch the sky, which is her domain. She is also credited with having gifted the Thuum to the first Nord heroes by sending Parthenox to teach it to them. And she is central to the Greybeards and the Way of the Voice. So Kinnereth gifted the shouts that you learn in Skyrim to the Nords, and taught them how to defend themselves against the dragons. To the Khajiit, she is known as Kinarthi and is said to be the sister of Alkosh. The Yokudans call her Tava, and they claim that she led them to safety after Yokuda's destruction. Overall, she is extremely important to the pantheons of men, not so much to the elves. But she's extremely important because she often comes in as like this savior who offers gifts and leads you to safety, and is generally all around considered a very good goddess. So she's very important. She's also heavily associated with healing the wounded, and restoration magic in general. Next, we have Mara. Mara is one of the goddesses that persists throughout every culture's pantheon in Tamriel, along with Akatosh. She is the goddess of love, and she is also called the Mother Goddess. To the Nords, she is the handmaiden of Kinnereth. She appears in all cultures' pantheon, and her name remains the same except to the Yokudans, where she is known as Morwa. She's often depicted as the wife of either Akatosh or Lorkhan, who we will discuss later, depending on the religion. And she is the patron of familial, romantic, platonic, and spiritual love in all forms. There is a Temple of Mara in Riften in Skyrim that is dedicated to marriage rituals and such. So she's very important when it comes to like familial love and romantic love, and she blesses, lovers. That's her whole realm. So honestly, there's not really much more to say about Mara, but she is very important in every single culture's religion because obviously everybody has love and some form of marriage or connection. Oh my gosh. Next on the list is Stendar. He is called the god of righteous might and merciful forbearance. I don't really know what that means, but kind of like a god of strength. He is the patron of magistrates and rulers and the Imperial Legion, so his domain revolves around Jarls in Skyrim, and different leaders look up to him as like a good leader, I guess, and a solid guy. Originally, he evolved from his Nordic origins as Stune. The cult following called the Vigilance of Stendar is said to have formed after the Oblivion Crisis, and their objective is to destroy undesirables such as necromancers, conjurers, vampires, and especially Aedra. There also is another cult following elves of Cyrodiil can connect with the people of Skyrim is because Zenithar watches over them and makes sure that they all work together. So him and his followers preach hard work, no stealing, no thievery with Zenithar, so if you're part of the Thieves Guild, he's not gonna like you very much. And also, he praises those who are wise in their spending and finances. He's known to the Bosmer as Zen. He's associated with a blue star that shines over Tamriel. I couldn't really find why he's associated with that, but he is. He's most often worshipped by merchants and middle nobility, because merchants, obviously their realm is commerce, and since he watches over commerce, it would only make sense to worship someone whose realm consists of that. And also middle nobility, because he's kind of like a god who is a patron of those who make money. So, if you're a shopkeep, or if you're a Thane and you're trying to make your way up in the world, Zenithar is the one that you're going to be praying to, because he will make sure that you have good trades. He's also closely linked to Kinnereth, as we mentioned before, and he is known as Zet to the Yokudans. So those are the 8 divines that are worshipped almost everywhere. They're often separate from the next one we're going to talk about. So Akatosh, Arcade, Dibella, Julianus, Kinnereth, Mara, Stendar, and Zenithar are the 8 divines that were worshipped throughout all of history. And then in the 3rd era, a man named Tiber Septim was born. But he is now known as Talos. So Talos, who is also known as Ismir, Dragonborn, and Tiber Septim, was the first man to unite all the regions of Tamriel under a single empire. He is said to be the most important hero god of mankind. Tiber Septim conquered all of Tamriel in the 3rd era, and he is said to have ascended to godhood upon his death. So he is vastly worshipped by men and not very much by elves, specifically not by the high elves of the Somerset Isles, because they believe that it's impossible for anyone to ascend to godhood, especially men, because they are mortal beings, and it wouldn't really make sense in their minds for them, for a mortal man to ascend to the godhood of Aedra, sorry. So the elves do not consider Talos to be an Aedra, and they remain only worshipping the 8 divines. In fact, worship of Talos was outlawed in the 4th era in most of the provinces of the Imperial Empire, because they made a pact with the elves that basically said, you guys can't worship Talos anymore, and it's part of the reason why there is a civil war in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. So those are the 9 divines, or the 8 divines, and the 1 divine who is Talos or Tiber Septim. Usually when Aedra, the word itself, actually means of our ancestors, because the elves believe that they were born of the Daedra, that the Aedra, I keep saying Daedra, the elves believe they were born of the Aedra, and that they are technically their ancestors. So that's why a lot of them also have issue with Talos, because he wasn't there before the beginning of the world. He didn't help create the world. He was just a man who possibly ascended to godhood. So yeah. So they fled out of Mundus, following Magnus, who is their leader. That's why they're called the Magnagi. And when they fled, they broke through the atmosphere of Mundus and tore a hole through oblivion into Aetherius. Aetherius is the realm that all of the Aedra live in. So the sun and the stars. The sun is Magnus, that's the hole that he tore. And the stars are the holes that his followers tore into oblivion. So the light from the sun and the stars is the light of Aetherius falling into Mundus. So Magnus himself is considered to be the god of magic. He is worshipped by some elves, but not all. And he is basically the personification of the sun. And he is the leader and king of the Magnagi. He is an Aedra. I'll talk about him a little bit later on. We don't have a lot of the names of the other Magnagi, but we have a few. One of them was Merid Nunda. Merid Nunda was a follower of Magnus that consorted with the Daedra, and she was then banished from the Magnagi. But she used the light of the sun and Aetherius to create her own realm in oblivion, and she is now called Meridia, and she is one of the 17 Daedric princes. So she used to be an Aedra, but basically kind of decided to have her own realm. There's also a group in the Magnagi called the Nemoli, and they are a group who supposedly wrote the Elder Scrolls by collecting songs created by Nirn and shaping them into reality. But this is actually disputed, as the scrolls are said to exceed both Aedra and Daedra, so it's almost impossible for an Aedra or a Daedra to have created the Elder Scrolls. There's also a Magnagi whose name was Una. She actually got lost in the void when the Magnagi fled. I don't know her significance, it wasn't really explained. But yeah, the one last Magnagi is called Zero League. And all that is known is his name. So we don't know what he did or what he represented. We only know that his name is Zero League. So that's the Magnagi. Basically, the most important guy in that group is Magnus, the god of magic. Now, we have one last god to discuss. He is present in every single culture's pantheon in Tamriel, but he is not worshipped as one of the 9 or 8 divines. He is most well known as Lorcan. He is called the missing god because, again, he is known, but he is the only god known to have actually died and remain dead and not have a presence at all in Tamriel. So, it is said that Lorcan was possibly the brother or opposing force of Akatosh, and in most elven pantheons he is said to have tricked the Aedra into creating the world of Mundus by giving up their power and putting it into the world of Mundus, losing most of their power to it. But in most pantheons of men, like the Nords, Lorcan is said to have convinced them into creating the world of Mundus. Most elven cultures see Mundus and mortality as a restraint on themselves, since they believe that their ancestors were gods and their ancestors were Aedra. They believe that they have devolved and lost the ability to remain immortal. But men and the dark elves believe that mortality is a challenge, a way to prove yourself, a way to stick out. If you have a strong legacy, then that means you were a good mortal and you had a good life. So the men, most men pantheons recognize Lorcan as a guy who stood up for them and a guy who defended them, and kind of like the beginning of their existence. And So, yeah, depending on the culture, he either tricked or convinced the Aedra into creating the realm of Mundus. Where is the bit? So, eventually, when the Aedra realized that they were going to lose their power by creating Mundus, they punished Lorcan by destroying him. The Aedra, who was once called Trinimac, was about to kill Lorcan when Akatosh instead pulled out his heart and basically threw it down to Mundus. And the heart of Lorcan actually plays a big role in a lot of the Elder Scrolls games, especially in Morrowind and Oblivion, because it was used various times throughout the ages. Many people believe that the heart of Lorcan remains under the Red Mountain in Vardenfell. The Red Mountain is a large volcano that sits in, or not Vardenfell, yes, Vardenfell in Morrowind. And people believe that the reason it's so active is because Lorcan's heart is under it. It is also said that some believe that the two moons that revolve around Nirn, there are two moons in the sky at night, are the body of Lorcan after it was destroyed. Each of the 8 divines represents one of the planets that revolves around Tamriel, or not Tamriel, Nirn. And so, because Lorcan doesn't have a planet, they assume that the two moons are 2 parts of his body. So yeah, we'll talk about the Dwemer another time, but their disappearance is directly linked to their usage of Lorcan's heart. There are also 3 Downmer people. Well, they were called Chimer at the time. There were 3 Chimer people that used Lorcan's heart to basically gain godhood and rule over Morrowind for thousands of years. Also, there is an in-universe scholar whose name is Mankar Cameron, and he believes that Lorcan helped create Mundus, and that Mundus and Nirn and Tamriel is his own personal realm in Oblivion, which I think is an interesting theory. If you think of Tamriel and Mundus as this kind of realm of a god rather than one that was created by several other gods. Anyway, either way, Lorcan is mentioned in every single culture's pantheon, and he always plays the role of this sort of trickster god. Who convinces and or tricks the Aedra into creating the world of Mundus, and when they realize that their power is being drained from this, they flee, and their punishment is to kill Lorcan and take his heart. So, yeah, I think he's one of the most interesting figures when it comes to gods and pantheons in the Elder Scrolls universe. I just find trickster gods fascinating. Let's go through all of his names. To the Bretons of High Rock, he is known as Shior. To the Imperials, he is called Shazar. To the Khajiit, he is known as Lorkaj. To the Nords, and the Nords highly revere him. They believe that he is the bringer of life to men. So, in the Nordic pantheon, he is called Shor. To the Reachmen and or the Forsworn of the Reach of Skyrim, he is called Lork. so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel, and it means so much to me. I'm so grateful for everyone who has subscribed.